So let's see, am I live? I'm hoping I'm back. I really hope I am. Okay, let me see. I'm so sorry about that. Looks like I'm back. I don't know what happened there. I'm hoping you're all still here and you haven't gone off, and let's try and see where we got to. Okay, I'm just waiting for everything to catch up so I can see it moving. Marjorie's back, I can see that. Thank you, Marjorie, for not giving up on me. I don't know what happened there, but I'm hoping we'll be all right. Candy's there, great. Now, I don't know where I'd got to. I'm hoping I'd got to the point before everything disappeared where I'd done my stamping and I was trimming it. Katie, hi. Katie's joined. Okay, so I'll wait for somebody to tell me, which won't help you, Katie, but for people who were here before we had the break, thank you, Faye, for waiting. Okay, so can somebody just tell me, had you missed anything? So I'd done the stamping after I'd cut out the jar. I'd taken the washi tape off the back and I'd just started to trim it. Hi, Belinda, you're back too. So if I carry on with the trimming, I'm hoping that you didn't miss anything. Can anybody type in and let me know, please? And I'll drink some tea meanwhile. Gillian's back, hooray. I am sorry about that. This is the joy of doing something live, isn't it? You never quite know what's going to happen. Lorraine's back, not missed anything. Fabulous, thank you, Lorraine. Okay, so I shall carry on trimming this, and I'm just going to make it just a little bit smaller. Let me take the jar part out so I don't lose that anywhere. Faye said, I just finished colouring. Great, thank you, Faye. So what I've done is I've taken the washi tape off the back so I can take the jar out, and I'm just trimming this down, and I'm doing this entirely by eye. I just want to allow a little bit more of that embossed background to show. So if I put this on my card, I'm going to take a little bit more off the right, but then I think I will be there. Sandy keeps losing me. I'm sorry about that, Sandy. I'm hoping everything's okay my end now. As far as I can tell, my internet connection looks all right now. I don't know what happened before. It just disappeared. But anyway, hopefully we're fine and we're back. So I've trimmed that. And so that's going to show plenty of this embossed background, which I wanted. So I'm going to lay that on my card, and I'm going to put glue on the back of my jar. And I'm going to lay this back in here again as if it was a puzzle piece. And I'm sticking it to that green layer, that Just Jade layer. Sandy's just moaned to her hubby and given him a mission to sort out the internet. Okay, so that's that layer. So I'll take that off, and then I can lay this exactly back on where I want it. So I'm now going to attach the dome to this top layer. There are lots of ways you can put these together, but this is the way that I find it's easiest. So I stick my cutout down, I attach the dome to the layer with the aperture, and then I will put the two together. Now, this is the way up the dome goes, so I want to expose this layer of double-sided tape, which sometimes comes off easily and sometimes doesn't. Oh, that's okay, that was easy. And so then I just have to lay this over the top and push it all the way down, and it will fit exactly. Give it a good press all the way around, and there you can see that dome is fixed now into my card, and I will be able to put it over there and make my shaker card. So the last thing to do is to put my little shaker pieces down. Now obviously if I put them in here and then turn this over, they're all going to fall out, so I'm going to put them on here. Depending on what you've got, it can be easy or difficult. If you're using glitter, it's a little bit fiddlier, but these aren't too bad. So I'm just going to push those into the middle like that, Faye says she thinks she needs these in her life. You really do, Faye. You absolutely do need these in your life. Okay, I'm now going to take the other set of backing off the dome. So that's then going to seal all the way around that jar when it's attached to my project. But I also need to glue around the edges of this card, otherwise those bits won't be attached to my card base. So there we go. So I'm now going to lay this down, and I want to do this first time really, but it's not too difficult. However, you do want to get your head over it, so apologies if I pull this down and it's not really in shot. So I'm now just going to, there we go, I'll move it back before I press it down. I've just laid that down over the top of my jar and my sprinkles. And I'm going to press down around the jar so that that double-sided tape will attach to the card. And then I'm going to press all around the card. And that is the shaker essentially done. So those all shake around beautifully inside. No problem at all. If I turn it like that, nothing's escaping. So these domes are wonderful. They're absolutely lovely. And now, just to pretty it up a little bit, I'm going to add a bow and a little tag. So I'll tie a little bow with the ribbon. Like that, trim the ends. I don't think there is anybody that doesn't enjoy a shaker card. You can make them for children, you can make them for men. You can make them for anybody. And I'm going to hold that onto the jar top with a couple of mini glue dots. These are brilliant for holding ribbon. If you use liquid glue, it often soaks through and shows on the front, which you don't want. And they're also great for attaching things to difficult surfaces. So if you're attaching metal, or in this case I'm attaching something to plastic, the glue dots will hold them beautifully. So I'll just pop that there to decorate the top. And then somewhere I had a tiny bit of card, didn't I? Here it is. So I'm just going to stamp "For You" on it, and let me just find that. There we go. I had this one earlier for something else I was doing and I'd forgotten to put it back on this table. Bring back my stamping mat. So that's that. Sandy says it looks lovely. Thank you, Sandy. And I'm just going to trim this now. Just trim the corners off that. And then I'll also use a couple of glue dots on the back of this, which will hold it on that plastic nicely. There we go. So that is that. And I will just quickly stamp a flower on the insert. And then the card is done. So these are so fun. I mean, there are all kinds of things you could put in a little jar, aren't there? You know, everything from little stars, all kinds of sequins, little beads. Oh, I've just put a black thumbprint on then. Let's turn it over. I've made shaker cards with the Whale of a Time suite, if you've seen that in the annual catalogue. That's really lovely to do. You can do them with absolutely anything. And they're always a winner. They are going to be a large letter stamp if you're sending them through the post. And I always include a bit of bubble wrap as well, or send them in a jiffy bag. But they are a really special card. when somebody opens that, they're going to be absolutely delighted. So there you go. That's the shaker cards. I used a different for you there. That's the one from Itty Bitty Greetings. And my bows are very, very different. No idea why, they just are. So that's the jar one then. So let me very quickly just remind you what I did. I punched the jar shape out of my white card, and then I held the two sections back together, but knowing where that cutout jar was helped me to place my stamped flowers. And then I removed the washi tape so that the little punched jar was separate, and then I laid the two pieces on my card exactly where I wanted them to go when it was finished. I then stuck down the jar shape and removed the outside piece that had the jar hole in it, and then I attached the dome to this piece here by taking the adhesive off the front, if you like, of the dome, the side facing me. I added my sprinkles on top of the cutout jar, and then I removed the backing tape from the back of the jar dome and added glue around the edge of this piece, and then just laid it over the top. So Faye says she didn't know about the foam mat and photopolymer. Now she's been shown it twice in a week. Isn't it funny how that sometimes happens, Faye? You obviously needed to hear it this week. It's just the right time for you to be told about that. Okay, so those are shaker domes then. And if I just very quickly bring back the sailing boat card, I made this in exactly the same way, the only difference being that it's a die instead of a punch to cut out this dome. And instead of using the piece I cut out of the patterned paper with the die, I cut another one out of Seaside Spray card and embossed it. But then I just used that in exactly the same way as you've just seen me use the cutout jar, just to place everything. And I stuck the sailing boat on top before I added the sprinkles and the die, and then this piece just sits at the bottom of the dome on the card. This is in the die set, the kind of the base of the snow globe. But other than that, that went together in exactly the same way, just a completely different shape and a different look. Alright, so I'm going to clear the decks and then very quickly bring in all the bits to show you the other way you can make shaker cards. So how to make them if you don't have the little domes. I'll put this one down for you to have a look at while I pull out all the bits. Okay, thank you, Gillian. I'm glad you like it. So this one involves making a little shaker unit or a shaker box, which you then literally stick on top of your card base. So that's how I've done this. And I've done some of the preparation for this in advance, so it will be a little bit quicker for you to see. Now this is a particularly large shaker unit. Usually I don't make them this big, I make them about half that size, but I did want to be able to use this beautiful hummingbird and flower from A Touch of Ink. This is one of the Sale-a-Bration sets, so I haven't got much longer to use this, and I do really love it. It's also quicker to make because the colouring in is all done with the stamps, so I don't have to do any colouring with markers for this set. So the first thing to do is to decide how big you want your shaker unit to be. Now I could measure that by stamping out the flower and the hummingbird and measuring round and thinking, okay, so that needs to be that size. And then you need to cut a few pieces of card. And I've got them pre-cut here, again to save time. So first of all you need a frame. Now you can use punches for this if you have two nesting punches. So you could use, for instance, the 2-inch circle punch and the 2 1/4-inch circle punch. But I've used dies for this. I used the stitch rectangles for this. And I'm just looking, I think I used the 2 largest dies. So I've got them here somewhere, here we go. So all you do is With some dies, it depends on the interval between them. Sometimes you can put the two down together and with one pass you can cut a frame. Sometimes you have to do one and then the other. So these are the two dies and they sit inside each other. So I used my magnetic platform and put them both down like that, which held them with a consistent border all round, and then just cut my card. With some dies, you need to use them one at a time because the difference between them is so small they won't nest inside each other. And if that's the case, it's always easier to cut the smaller one and then cut the larger one around that hole. So that's how I made the frame. And I'm just going to slide those dies back in there because you know how these can go walkabout if you aren't on your guard. They have a mind of their own. Okay. So that's how I cut the frame. I used Rococo Rose card. And then I needed a piece to stamp on that was the same size as the outside measurement of the frame. So that's here. Now you can cut it with the die. I actually just measured it and cut it because I didn't want the stitched marks in it. And this is a die which cuts a stitched mark all the way around, but that's just exactly the same size. And then you also need a piece of window sheet, which is not good for film because it probably won't really show, but if I tilt it you can see it shining, so you know I'm holding it. And this is the same size again. So it's the same size as the white card and it's the same size as the outside measurement of my frame. And again, I would normally use a die to cut the window sheet, but again I didn't want the stitched marks in it, and I think it would have fought a little bit because the stitching always holds on to the card a little bit, and I think with a window sheet it would have been awkward to cut. But that's what you need. You need a frame and you need some card to stamp on and you need a piece of window sheet. So those will all go together in just a moment. These are my pre-cut and pre-prepared little bits to make things go a bit quicker. And then normally I put a plain white insert in, but I didn't want to waste this stitched piece which had come out of the frame. So I thought, well, I'll put that inside. So then I just cut another stitched rectangle to use as my insert, which actually is really nice. I do like that effect. I probably will do that more often now. But let me put that aside. And I cut my card base down. It's not just half a sheet of A4 because this was the size I needed my frame to be. So I've cut the card base to fit that. Okay, Maureen Russell's here. Hi Maureen, lovely to have you. So that's my card base. I can set that aside as well. The last thing that you need that's a little bit out of the ordinary are foam adhesive strips. I know lots of you have got these already, but if you haven't, they're on the adhesives page of the catalogue, and they are like our dimensionals, like our foam pads, but they're in a long strip like this, and they are actually deeper than dimensionals, and they are what give you the gap in between your stamped layer and your frame. So if I tilt that, I don't know if you can see, but what you can see going across there is the foam strip. Okay, so I'm going to start making now because again it's much easier to show you than it is to explain to you, but you know all the bits that you need. So I'm going to do my stamping first of all. I'm going to bring my mat because it's photopolymer stamps, so we now know that we definitely need a mat. And I'm going to use this lovely hummingbird. So I've got the hummingbird outline, the hummingbird colouring in, and then the same for the flower outline and the stamp to colour in the flower. The colouring in on these is very much watercolour style, so it doesn't fit exactly. It looks a little bit like you've very randomly painted some watercolour paint over the top. I'm stamping in basic grey ink, which is a little bit softer than black, so I wanted the outline to show, but I didn't want it quite as harsh as it would have been with black. There we are. Actually, I'm going to stamp the flower. I'm going to stamp the flower first. Yes, I am going to stamp the flower first. There we go. Just because it's going to help me place things a little bit more easily. I'll stamp the flower there, come back with the hummingbird. And I'm remembering that the frame is going to go around the edge of this, so I don't want to go right to the edge, otherwise anything stamped very close to the edge is going to be hidden by that frame. And then I come in and colour it, which is very much quicker than the first card you saw me make. So I'm using Rococo Rose for the hummingbird, which is the same colour as the card frame. And because these are photopolymer stamps, I can see through and see what I'm doing. So that's that. You can see what I mean about it being kind of approximate. It doesn't fit the outline exactly. It's just like a kind of a swoosh of colour. And then I'm bringing in Seaside Spray, which is the same colour as my card base, to colour in the flower. And again, this is very approximate. And I haven't got the right stamp there either. I'm thinking, why doesn't that look like it fits at all? It's because it's the one for colouring in the leaf, not the flower. So let's try again, shall we? Okay, this is the one for the flower. That'll work much better. Okay. So something like that. There we go. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of Wink of Stella, just so there's a little bit of shine. You know what hummingbirds are like. They're really iridescent, beautiful birds. And so I'm going to bring in a little bit of Wink of Stella and just add a few touches, just really where the lines of the feathers are. I don't want lots of thick glitter, but just a little bit of sparkle. So I'm just painting that over the top there. So these you can keep upright, but keep them up that way. So keep them with the brush end uppermost, and that will stop all the mica, which is the sparkle, clogging up and drying in the bristles. Another way of remembering it is the label here, which says glitter clear, that's the colour, have that at the top. And if I just tilt that for you, you can hopefully see there's just a hint of sparkle on there. So there we go. So that's that ready-made. I am going to leave it just for a minute for that Wink of Stella to dry, but it will happen quite quickly under the light. And I'm just going to add just some little dots. I've got a bumblebee marker here, and I'm just adding just a tiny little bit of yellow there, the flower centres and the bird's eye. So that can go to one side, and now I can work on the frame. So I've turned this over. This is the wrong side uppermost. And I'm just going to put a very fine line of glue around here because I'm going to attach the window sheet to it. I left my glue lying flat instead of upside down, which is what I usually do, so it's not flowing very well. You don't want too much glue here. You want enough that there's glue all the way along, but not so much that when you pop the window sheet on it, it's going to squidge out, because you don't want glue around the edges. It'll look horrible if it lands on the window sheet. And you also don't want it getting anywhere you don't want it, otherwise your sequins will be sticking all over the place. I've got little bits of dust on my window sheet. Okay, so this is exactly the same size as the outer edges of the frame, so it will just fit perfectly on there like that. Again, you probably can't see it very well because it's see-through, but believe me, it's sticking on there. So I'm just pressing on all the edges to make sure I've got a good seal, because I don't want my sequins to be escaping. And I'm going to set that aside to dry. The window sheet isn't absorbent, so it won't absorb any of the glue, but nonetheless it does grab fairly quickly. Got a little uneven bit there. Either I've stuck it down not quite straight, or I cut it not quite straight. But that's okay, because I'm just going to trim that tiny little bit off. There we go. Alright, so I'll set that aside too. And then I'm going to bring in my stamped section. That's going to fit there, so I know that that's going to fit fine. I'm going to add the decoration afterwards, and I've got my shakers. So I'm using the Woven Threads sequins. So these are beautiful colours which include Rococo Rose and Seaside Spray, which are two of the colours I've used in my stamping and in the card. So they will be gorgeous. Alright, so this has had a minute or two to set up and I think that's pretty well stuck. So the next thing to do is to add the foam strip. So I'm going to pull a strip off, so that's sticky on the side that was down on the backing sheet. And this fits this frame beautifully, so it fits all the way along. And when you get to a corner, you can either bend it round the corner, but I'm actually going to trim it off. If I was working with an oval or a circle, I would probably bend it round, but I've got a nice straight corner here, so I can trim it off. And then when I attach it again, I just need to make sure there's no gap here. It's really important that there aren't any gaps in the foam, otherwise again your sequins could escape. I'm not going to use that tiny bit on the next length. I'm going to take another long piece. So the beauty of this method of a shaker card is that you can make your shaker box or frame whatever shape or size you like. With the domes, they're very easy to do because a lot of the work is done for you, but you are stuck with that shape and size. But with this method you can make a square, a circle, an oval, a rectangle, whatever you like. There we go. Now I have got a teeny tiny gap there, but it is only teeny tiny, so I think I will get away with that. Alright, so the next thing to do is to get everything ready for the sequins to go inside. Is that on? That's on the other side, that's alright. Acetate is really static and it will pick up little bits from all over. I have tried using an embossing buddy on it, but I found I couldn't get rid of all the powder. So it does damp down the static really nicely, but it does leave a powdery finish. I'm trying to see, I think there's a little bit here. Yeah, that's on the outside, so that's okay. Alright, now you can do this one of two ways. You can put your image down, put your sequins down and lay this on top, or you can lay the frame down, put the sequins in and lay the picture on top. So I think that's the way I'm going to go. So this is my frame. I've got the right side down. I've got my foam here and I've taken the backing paper off the foam because once these sequins go down, if I pick it up and have to start manipulating it, they're going to fly everywhere. How many sequins, you ask me? Well, it depends on how big your frame is and how many you want. I put quite a lot of sequins in here because this is quite a long length of the bottom of the frame. For something that's about that size, I usually say, you know, a big pinch or a couple of pinches. I've got more than that here, but it will need them. And if I kind of start to spread them out a little bit, you can get some idea as to how they will look. I might even put just a few more in, I think. There we go. Let me put the lid on those now. Okay, and I'm going to kind of flatten them out a little bit, just so they're no taller than the sides of my little frame. Otherwise it'll be hard to stick it down. Okay, so I've got my stamped piece of card. I'll turn it face down as well. And now I'm just going to attach it to this. Now it's exactly the same size as the frame, so it's not too tricky to do. There we go. And the adhesive on the foam will hold it in place, so you don't need to add any extra glue. And that is my shaker unit. To start with, you might need to tap it a little bit. Sometimes the sequins kind of clump together and get too tall and get jammed, but they will sort themselves out. And then you just need to attach it to your card. So it suddenly all comes together and gets completed, this method. And once again, you can see that there are no sequins escaping because I made sure that the foam was all the way round. There. So that's the basic card done. I'm just going to stamp a happy birthday to attach to the front. And I'm using the happy birthday from the art gallery set, which has got a really clear, bold font, which I like. And this little stitched rectangle also comes from those same stitched rectangles dies. Hopefully I've got that pretty central. Yes, not too bad. You've all gone very quiet. Are you all concentrating with me? Okay, so a little bit of glue on the back of this. And I'm just going to line it up near the bottom. And then I stamped and just snipped out with my scissors another one of the flowers just to add on the outside. I could obviously have stamped more of them inside, but I rather like it applied on the outside. And I don't mind a bit of fussy cutting, so that was fine. So there's my one inside, so I'll just kind of have this slightly overlapping it. There we are. And then the last touch are those two pieces I showed you for the insert. So this is the bit that came out of the frame, and then I just cut a smaller rectangle using the same stitched rectangle dies again, and I'm going to stamp the same happy birthday inside. And I would normally stamp probably the hummingbird inside, but it's just, I think it's just a little bit too small. Yeah, I was just looking at my first sample. I didn't stamp anything other than the words in there. Okay, a bit more glue and then our card is done. Hello Pam Cottrell, if I've pronounced your surname correctly. Lovely to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. I've been making shaker cards this afternoon, and to see what I did, you can obviously replay the video. Once I've finished, it'll be sitting here on my Facebook page, but I will also upload it to my YouTube channel, where it will also sit forever. And my YouTube channel is called the same as this page, Handmade at Home with Sally Bowman. There are lots of handmade at homes out there, so if you add my name and you know you'll get me. So there's our shaker card. So one where we've actually handmade it completely from scratch. Not really that difficult, I hope you'll agree. Thank you, Gillian. Thank you, Marjorie. I'm glad you like it. So just to quickly run through how we did this, let me put those shakers down at the bottom. We cut a frame. I die cut it. You can cut one by hand, but it's much easier to use dies or punches. I then cut a piece of card to stamp on that was the same size as the outside of the frame, and I cut a piece of window sheet that was also the same size. I did my stamping and decoration, and then to construct this little shaker unit, which you then stick directly onto your card, I attached the window frame to the wrong side of the, window sheet to the wrong side of the frame, and then I used the foam adhesive strips all the way round the frame. I made sure I'd done my stamping and that was all complete, and then I laid the frame upside down on the table. I took the other backing off the foam strip and added my sequins to the centre of the frame and just flattened them out a little bit so they weren't piled up too much. And then I took my stamped piece right side down and laid it on top of the frame, and because it's the same size it fits exactly all the way around, and that gave me a sealed unit with my stamping showing and the shaky sequins over the top. And then I just picked that up and attached it to my card base. So that's 2 ways then of making shaker cards. Let's bring these back. Let's remove one of these, then I can bring in the others. So this one was made in exactly the same way. It's a square, and you can see I've put that to one side of the card. But instead of a stamped piece of card on the back of this unit, I added a piece of acetate. And then I've cut a frame and added it over the top to make it nice and neat. And I've also cut the aperture in the card so that you can see through from both sides. And then that stamping you can see is on the inside of the card. And then if you're going to use the domes, we've got one which is a mason jar, which you can use with the jar punch, and a snow globe which you can use with the I'm trying to remember what they're called. I had a bit of paper, didn't I? The snow globe scenes dies. So all of these are in the annual catalogue. Everything I've shown you is in the annual catalogue, with the exception of these stamps, which are a Sale-a-Bration free set. So I hope you've really enjoyed those. Let me pull them down a bit. Hopefully you can see them all. Shaker cards are just lovely to do. I'm going to bring the camera back up to me just so I can say a proper goodbye to you. So it'll go yellow, and then hopefully you'll be able to see me. Ooh, I have a feeling I might be upside down. That'll be interesting. Let's see if I can sort that out. Because when I restarted with hands down. I might need to change this. I've no idea if I will or not. So if I look like I'm upside down and back to front, I will quickly do something about it. Oh, it's always a bit of a mystery, isn't it, knowing what's going to happen on a live. So I'm just looking over to my iPad to see if I end up upside down or not. No, I'm not. I'm the right way up. Hooray. Okay, so that was shaker cards. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Lovely to see some new faces again. So if you've shared the video, thank you very much for doing that. It's so nice to be seen by new people. And if you haven't shared it but feel you'd like to, please do just tap that share button. That would be absolutely brilliant. Next week, I can tell you what we're doing next week, because I have a plan, and I've even done a Facebook event. So on my Facebook page, if you look at where the events are, you will find that I've done one for next week, which tells you what I'll be using. And my how-to is going to be all about colouring ribbon. So if you like to have ribbon in colours to match your project, here's a way of doing it. In fact, there'll be 2 ways to do it. And I'm also going to be showing you something brand new that's not in any of the catalogues, and it's the butterfly bouquet selection, if you like. I'll be showing you some paper and some stamps and some dies, which are absolutely gorgeous. I'll be doing a class with them in April, and they will be in the forthcoming annual catalogue, but you will be able to get them from next month. So I thought, well, if I show you just before they become available, you'll know whether there's something you'd like to add to your wish list or not. So that will be next week, butterflies and how to colour ribbon. So I hope to see most of you at 2 o'clock next Friday. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you very much for bearing with the technical hitch, but we got over it in the end. It's been lovely to have you. Thank you for all your lovely comments. I will go through them again afterwards, just make sure that I didn't miss answering any questions. And if you haven't seen all of the video but you'd like to, you'll be able to re-watch it all here on Facebook, or go to my YouTube channel, Handmade at Home with Sally Bowman. But until next week, have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.